Hey guys, Ex-Peon here, and today we're going to talk about the time I played a Diceless TTRPG and I liked it. So, for context, this game is called Enclave, and it's created by an internet friend of mine by the name of Robbie Howell. He has a YouTube channel called Robbie Lava where he primarily makes videos about the computer game Age of Empires 2. I've followed that channel for a while. I've interacted with him a decent amount, just mainly about the game. But I ended up semi recently finding out that he actually has a TTRPG he's been working on called Enclave. It's a diceless game. So he invited me on and I gave it a try. So kind of the idea behind Enclave is it's a diceless TTRPG. It's sort of set in like a Marvel multiverse kind of setting where it's sort of like it's so large. It's also sort of like timeless or occupying all time. So you can have a cowboy at the same time that you have like a Viking warrior and you have like a sci-fi guy and like a Marvel superhero. But the setting is definitely meant to be very large, very vast. Kind of the setting can kind of have anything you can imagine. So the character classes reflect this. Like there's a gunslinger class, there's a librarian class, there's a thane class, there's a Thunderbird class, which is sort of like a Thor or a Storm from Marvel, and that's the class I played in the one shot I did for this. And there's a sort of like personality traits that sort of function as ability scores, like ambition, willpower, vigor, that type of thing. So your class or your class partially determines which ability scores you have, but you fill out the rest, and it's like a 0 to 4 system, and kind of I think the basic resolution is that the game master kind of considers your personality trait when you're attempting an action, and kind of adjudicates that. So if you have like a 4 in something, then you're like superhumanly good, like Superman. I don't know if it's literally like Superman, but that's like the absolute best you can be. Whereas I think 0 is just like kind of average. So there's definitely, subjectivity to that, but I didn't find it to be subjective or frustrating or anything when I played the game. Though, of course, that probably depends on the DM. But anyway, so the character I made, he was of the Thunderbird class. His name was Bishop Bolton. So he's the if I was tech savvy, I'd probably generate some bad AI art of this guy. But I'll just describe him. So he's like a maybe like a 6'2" African American man, very tall, very muscular, and he has glowing yellow eyes. Bishop Bolton, and basically he's sort of like a preacher meets Storm from Marvel. So and the powers he got involved like using the wind to kind of or to kind of glide in the air, or use wind to kind of propel yourself up. The thunder drop, which was a lot of fun, and also like comes with a thunder hammer and that type of thing. So you might be wondering like how does a TTRPG without dice handle things like combat? And I guess the answer is sort of narratively, where you're sort of rewarded for creative thinking, also for good story thinking. Like there was a few times where I was rewarded by the game master, who in this one shot was Robbie Howell himself, but I was sort of rewarded for like doing something that was creative or also just like good for the story, like made the story more interesting. And the way like abilities and that type of thing work, like class abilities, is there's sort of like a recharge on these abilities. So like a less powerful ability would have a short recharge, whereas a very powerful ability would have a long recharge. It is inherently subjective, but it wasn't a problem. And there was like a scenario where I did something that was creative or just made for a good story, and the game master sort of allowed me to circumvent the natural recharge limitation on my ability. So I don't know exactly how you would classify this game in terms of the taxonomy of TTRPGs. Definitely very much a story game, but it's not just about making the best story. Like you can die. Like there's a challenge aspect to it. I don't know. I don't know exactly how to classify it, but I found it enjoyable. I think you might be interested in checking this game out. I'll provide a link to it, and I'll also provide a link to his Discord, which is a really popping community. So if so, I don't know. I think you might find this interesting. I enjoyed it. I want to say it might have even been a 4 hour session. I think it actually was, if I remember correctly. Like, but it was fun. It was definitely different. I'm used to dice. I'm used to hard numbers and that type of thing. But it worked. This was a one shot. I haven't done like a long term thing, so I can't say how it holds up long term. Though I will note that kind of the implied structure, or not the implied, the actual structure of the game is sort of like a series of one shots, like within this multiverse like city, or like this infinite multiverse like sort of setting that can kind of house anything. You're sort of part of like a secret agency, sort of that's like goes on secret missions to keep things together. I think that agency is what's called the Enclave. So each session is a mission you're on. So it's not like a sandbox, or like that kind of long term D&D campaign where there's like an overarching story. I mean, you probably could do something like that, but my understanding is that the game is meant to have sort of this sort of mission based thing. And the mission we went on, I guess I'll talk about that because it was an interesting mission. Was so there was this like large hotel building that was housing this veteran, this sort of housing sort of like a party for veterans, and the building had been taken over by these terrorists, these like fanatic youths, and the building was on fire. They were killing people, and we came in, and we were taking out these fanatic youths, and over kind of the course of the going through this, we kind of came to learn that like the veterans that were being honored actually did some messed up stuff in the past, and that these fanatics had some legitimate grievances against them, and perhaps seeking vengeance against them wasn't completely unjustified. But so it was an interesting format, and I think the mission-based format allowed the game master to put a lot of interesting story into it, and really customize a good story. So again, I'm used to Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not used to that kind of one-shot mission format. I'm not used to just like the mechanics of that, but I enjoyed it. I found it pretty smooth, and yeah, I think you might enjoy it. I think you might want to check it out. So thank you for watching. I'll provide the links, and have a good one. Goodbye.